something on Sunday mornings. Might Steve Wright's Sunday love songs be getting the old Spanish Archer? It did cross my mind that this sort of thing can often turn out to be nothing more than a cursory meet and greet. Let us know if you have any ideas for a show. We'd really love to work with you, was quite often the end result of 2 hours on the trains and tube, sitting with a big grin slapped on your face in front of somebody who occasionally nodded. These speculative encounters mean that they get to put a tick in their managerial job done box, but it feels like a colossal waste of time. I met up with Addison in reception at Western House in Great Portland Street, just north of Oxford Circus in London's glitzy West End, and we were whisked up to the first floor and Jim's office. I looked wide-eyed around the walls. There were photos of Jim arm in arm with various dignitaries and celebs. Awards for shows jostled for position with Ken Pine cartoons from Private Eye, archly mocking Moya. There was a large coffee table in the centre of the room and a couple of standard-issue big managerial sofas and a vast desk behind which sat the commanding figure of Jim Moya himself. As I looked down at the coffee table, I wondered how many people had been fired over its dark, forbidding surface. Had Jim ever had to arm-wrestle Wogan on it during contract negotiations? Also in on the meeting was Moya's second-in-command at Radio 2, Leslie Douglas, a no-nonsense Geordie. Throughout the time I knew her, Douglas was passionate about just two things: radio and Bruce Springsteen. While Ad sparred around with the two of them, I sat and smiled to myself and mentally prepared for the vague promises of the "we'd love to work with you sometime" chat. I couldn't have been wider of the mark. After Ad had finished verbally knocking our hosts about, we took our seats and got down to business. Moya looked round at me. "Now then, we will be launching a brand new music radio station in the March of next year, and we would like you to be the host of the breakfast show." I took a slightly firmer grip of my coffee and cocked my head towards him in an inquisitive fashion, not unlike a puzzled Labrador. "The BBC are going to be starting up a number of new digital radio services in partnership with existing stations," Jim thundered on. "Radio 4 will be launching one, as will Radio 1, and we will have one as well." I looked at the beaming face of Moya and mustered up all of my intellectual reserves to come up with a trenchant response to his very kind offer. "Oh, right," were the only words I could muster. With the advances in technology, the BBC, like all broadcasters, would be slowly transferring all its radio and television services to digital platforms. The digital switchover meant that everybody in the UK would be listening to radio and watching television on digital receivers by 2012. I really should have been more aware that this was happening, as the BBC had used me to front a television campaign to promote this rapidly approaching technological wonder. I spent 2 days in a van and on location with Andy Parsons and Henry Naylor, who played my hapless film crew. We were supposedly making a fly-on-the-wall documentary about this exciting new technology. The loose gag of the thing was that as we went from place to place, we kept being caught by our unwitting subjects. The first day was spent shooting with Leslie Grantham, Sanjeev Bhaskar, Govinda Gier, and a couple of puppets. I had a fairly energetic time of it, jumping through hedges, falling off a ladder, and getting wedged in a serving hatch. On day 2, I was lucky enough to spend a few hours on a studio set with John Peel. Peely's role involved him listening to a digital radio while he was taking a bath, while I, naturally enough, had to stick my head through a cat flap in order to see what he was up to. As the army of technicians fussed around the set, I sat with John in the hospitality area, me in a rather nice tonic blue two-piece, and John in a dressing gown and swimming trunks ready for his bath scene. As we sat there, I did my level best to hide the obvious joy at finally meeting him. I thought a nice neutral opener would be to say how much my wife and I enjoyed listening to Home Truths. He sipped his red wine and sighed. I had the feeling I might have inadvertently touched a nerve. "Yes, it's a good show, but I don't know." He paused before going on. "They do too many of them. That's the thing with the BBC. As soon as they find something that does well, they always want more of it. I hardly get any time off because I'm always recording bloody Home Truths." John had been with the BBC since the late 1960s and had become one of the leading lights of change in music with the arrival of the punk scene in 1976. But one of the problems with staying loyal to the corporation is that you can end up being completely taken for granted by management. Each new controller of Radio 1 didn't seem to know what to do with him. At the same time, none of them had the balls to fire him because they knew just how much outcry there would be. The time slots of his show were shuffled around with little regard for the man who had championed so many bands throughout his career. So as time went on, Peel shows became more and more marginalised. He was kind of broadcasting equivalent of the Ravens at the time.